If you're one of the people much like myself who found the CXR Corvette Vision GT to be a pretty frustrating experience, as I of course spoke about yesterday in its own review, then boy howdy are you going to hate this one even more, because we have literally reached the point, folks, where Polyphony has added, for all intents and purposes, a Vision GT car, the second most powerful car of the entire Gran Turismo series in fact. Yes, it is literally that powerful, right behind the Tomahawk X, which you can't even use in Vision GT events. And the dumbest thing of all isn't even because of how quick it is, it's not because of how powerful it is. That would make sense to some degree. Surely, if it were this 2,100 horsepower car, which it is, four-wheel drive, all electric, instant torque, it sounds like it could be this unbeatable thing. The electric equivalent of a Tomahawk certainly sounds like an absolute monster. Me, for example, I've always liked the idea of an electric Red Bull with the instant acceleration, some kind of different alternative aero, the fan system. To me, at least, it's an idea I would have liked them to explore. The problem is, it's not because of how quick it is, it's not because of how good it is, and it certainly isn't because of how powerful it is, it's because it ain't a Vision GT. And that is one of the weirdest things I've seen in Gran Turismo recently. Aside from how weirdly implemented the Nismo was last time around, this one is definitely even worse, because aside from like one-make stuff, much like yesterday with the CXR, or the Hypercar Parade, that's pretty much the only places you can use this car. Now secondarily to that, we have to talk about, of course, how it drives, with 2,145 horsepower, which manages to upstage even the racing version, so sounds good on paper, and at 1,400 kilos for a full EV especially, that's really good. And you would have to assume that they're taking a few liberties there in terms of either how long the battery would last, Volkswagen IDR style in real life, or just, you know, Tomahawk style, having a pie in the sky, just bit of fun, which personally I do prefer. I like it when we get stuff like the Tomahawks and the Chaparrals. I wish, for example, we had the Bertoni. It would have been cool to have essentially a Batman tumbler in Gran Turismo. The problem is, it's not necessarily as good as you would hope. In fact, it comes on sports tyres as standard, and this is one of those vehicles which has what I would describe as run-off wheel spin. And what I mean by that is it has so much power, so much torque, and most crucially of all, instant torque because of being electric, that by the time you've gotten the grip to the wheels, you're probably at the next corner. And when you back off the throttle, it's still wheel spinning even when you're not actually accelerating. It's that powerful of a car. And of course the problems stemming from that fundamental issue are pretty obvious. For one thing, you can't get the power down properly in a straight line, certainly on sports tyres at least, and even on racing ones it's a very, very powerful car, so you're not actually getting the full benefit of all of that power. The lack of downforce could have something to do with that in comparison to racing ones or the Tomahawks, that kind of stuff, but also, more importantly, you could say it seriously hampers the cornering. If you learn how to use the car effectively, you can take corners extremely quickly. It's just one of those cars which I describe as more of a point and shoot kind of approach. It feels like an electric missile. It just fires in a straight line, wheel spinning constantly at the same time. It actually kind of feels, in an ironic sort of way, like driving a glitch. It feels like when you used to put a cheat disc in and then play Gran Turismo 4, press in the analog stick and you just do like 1,000 miles an hour. Total lack of any kind of steering feel. It's essentially like a rocket car. And if we still had something like the Las Vegas drag strip, that would be all well and good, but even then, you're probably going to lose to cars with less power because of just how much wheel spin you've got. To me, the single most egregious thing about this car, though, isn't the fact that you can't use it much. It's not even the fact that it's this car which has all that power and doesn't really feel like it does much with it. To me, the single most annoying thing about the car is ironically showcased by Forza. And it's also, of course, showcased in real life, but most of us, myself included, don't have much of a point of reference for how a 2,000 horsepower electric car should actually feel. But if you, for example, jump over into Forza, or even in the case of some other electric cars in Gran Turismo, and compare them, I'm actually probably going to do a separate video about this, because I really don't think Polyphony understand electric cars. Not just in terms of how to put them in a game, it kind of gives me the impression they just don't get them, like, at all, because these cars should not handle like this. And the reason why I can say that, even without having driven one in real life, is take the Lotus Evija as a prime example. That is literally a 2,000 horsepower car, except it's a customer purchasable multi-million pound car which you can drive legally on the street. It weighs 2 tons, so by all intents and purposes it should be a worse car than this through corners, and yet it isn't. It's a car that people can actually drive and is road legal, so clearly it has to pass safety regulations in order to be allowed on the street. I just don't see a car like this, at least if it performed and handled in this sort of way, ever being allowed on a public road, because because it would be undrivable. And for a car that has really no restraints in terms of a rule book, they could have made it however they wanted. They decided to make it this way. They decided to make it a car which fits in with a group of vehicles that people already don't like, but it's not even eligible for the events that people who do like them enjoy using them in, making it ironically even more useless, even for those who love the car. And it has performance which on paper sounds tremendous, far beyond 1,000 horsepower per ton in fact, and yet it ends up feeling like nothing. It doesn't even feel fun in a straight line. It's everything that electric cars are hated for being. It's this soulless, characterless, boring, and yet somehow challenging car to drive. When I first drove it when the update dropped, I liked it. I don't know what happens after that first day, but on day one it almost feels like some of these vehicles feel better, and then, I don't know, when they update the seasonal events on a Friday, it's almost like the cars change, because my initial impression of this car was I actually quite liked it. And maybe it's because my expectations were so low, but driving it again now, I like it less and less every time I drive the car. In fact, I would go so far as to say that even pre-update, the update that happened before, most people would probably genuinely enjoy driving the front-wheel drive Nismo LM car more than driving this. This vehicle is that awkward to drive. In fact, this is somehow a worse cornering car than a thrust-powered Chaparral, a vehicle which is not even driven through rotational shafts. Anyone who knows anything about automotive, drag racing, anything like that, you'll understand exactly why I would bring that up. The idea that any kind of quote-unquote normal vehicle, certainly a futuristic one, would or even could have worse handling than a literal thrust-driven, laser-powered, essentially rocket car, that is insanity, and it makes the Chaparral look easy to drive in comparison. This is such a fumbled opportunity. It's everything the Chaparral isn't: boring, dull, useless, and just a squandered waste of time of a vehicle. The racing version is still more pleasant to drive, but is equal, if not even worse, in terms of being just utterly useless. And to really highlight just how bad this car is, this car makes the Afeela look good. And we're going to talk about the Afeela tomorrow, because the Afeela was actually the biggest pleasant surprise, really ironically, of all four vehicles. And to me, that's not a good thing. It just shows how bad these other cars are. The Aventime, of course, is great, but we already knew it was going to be. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts down below, and it's such a shame as well, because it really gives me like Cadillac Cian, but for the future sort of vibes. So it disappoints me even more in that kind of way, particularly on a vehicle which, in my opinion, looks way nicer than a C8 Corvette ever has. But that's it for my thoughts on this one. A very, very odd choice and a really, really bad implementation of a vehicle into the game. Stick around tomorrow, of course, for my thoughts on the Afeela, of course, with a members video tomorrow as well. And for now, thanks for watching.